This is 5G Talent Talk with Kerry Charles, CEO of Broadstaff Talent Solutions. Brought to you by RCR Wireless News and Telecom Careers. Connect at kerrycharles.com. And now, here's Kerry Charles.
Hello, I'm Kerry Charles, your host of 5G Talent Talk. Today, we're going to talk about how 5G will transform our workforce. I'm excited to have with us Kevin Shatzkamer. Kevin is the Vice President and General Manager of Service Provider Solutions at Dell Technologies. He holds 50 patents, has 2 master's degrees, 1 from MIT, and he's published 2 books. He currently leads Dell's 5G strategy. And exciting news, he was just named one of Fierce Telecom's rising stars. Congratulations, Kevin, and thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Kevin, can you talk a little bit more about your role at Dell?
Certainly. So when I joined Dell, which actually is just 3 years ago this month, I was brought in very specifically to address the service provider vertical, both the telecommunications industry as well as the cloud service providers, hosters, B2B, et cetera, and to help Dell in the positioning of its very broad product portfolio across compute, storage, networking, virtualization, and data protection to be able to bring relevancy into the use cases, workloads, and areas where service providers were investing into their business to capture digital transformation. And over the course of the last 3 years, that's gone from, I would say, 90% strategic, 10% operational to roughly a 50-50 split of operational versus strategic in terms of now broadening the role and aperture to not only be focused on what we strategically need to do, but how do we go work with service providers to execute on that vision.
Great. So this new 5G technology is going to change the way that we live our lives. It's going to change businesses. But in order to make 5G a reality, the workforce will also need to change. So, Kevin, how do you see that 5G is going to transform the workforce?
Yeah, I think, if we think about 5G on its surface and we think about what the industry continues to emphasize on 5G, I think that the bigger, more, faster tends to be within focus, faster radios, lower latency, more users and devices that can connect. But I think what tends to be missing in that conversation is that 5G is really the first point where we see verticalization of the mobile network and the telecommunications network towards a set of use cases. And what I mean by that is that we don't just discuss how do I go connect smartphones and tablets at faster speeds and stream media to those devices, but how do I change the very nature of media to be more immersive, and how do I implement, integrate artificial and augmented reality technologies, virtual reality technologies for immersive media? How do I think about using 5G as a technology to transform the automation inside of manufacturing and industrial facilities? How do I think about 5G as an enabler to new sets of enterprise services and edge solutions? How do I think about the role in transforming ports, et cetera? And when we start to verticalize in that way, I think what it leads to from a workforce perspective is multiple things. First off, the telecommunications sales teams needs to grow in its understanding of how to verticalize solution offerings and not just be wed to thinking about 5G as just another access technology. Number 2 is recognizing that these networks are built for so many different use cases simultaneously that in order to operate these networks successfully, everything from how do I architect it, how do I deploy it, how do I scale it, and how do I handle day-to-day operations needs to be built and focused on use case first, and understanding how do I optimize the experience for a particular use case. And what that means is it's not just understanding the domain of the network that's required for the workforce. It's understanding the analytics that are coming off of that network and how it translates into customer experience. It's designing new ways to collect information and telemetry from the infrastructure. It's redesigning the billing systems. It's redesigning the IT systems and redesigning all the processes to be very customer-centric first. And if we move that way, it's not just retooling the engineering teams and the operations teams inside of the telecommunications industry. It's also growing the domain expertise in areas that I think are not traditional areas that would be comfort. right? It's growing analytics expertise. It's growing AI and machine learning, data science, computer science, and all of these areas that we talk about in the digital transformation. They really all come together here in one use case, and that's 5G.
I'm Carrie Charles, 5G Talent Talk, and we're speaking today with Kevin Shatzkamer, the Vice President and General Manager of Service Provider Solutions at Dell Technologies. What new skills are going to be needed with this transformation?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, there's the technologies that I started to mention. It's having a background in computer science and having that computer science background intersect very well into the domain knowledge of running telco networks. It is understanding analytics and being able to extract value from the data itself. It's understanding how to organize, classify, categorize the data into areas of value. It's advanced programming, it's cloud computing, it's API design, it's DevOps, it's agile from a development process perspective. And when we put all of those different things together, what it's really yielding is that the roles in these organizations are changing in lots of meaningful ways, but the processes of the organizations will also change, and the organizational structures themselves will pivot to align to this new DevOps and agile working methodology.
So is telecom becoming more of an IT environment?
If you asked me that question 5 years ago, I would say absolutely. And I think that there were technology data points in how core networks were evolving around technologies like network function virtualization, where I would say absolutely the telecom network is becoming the IT network. But now as we start to have the conversations around the value of business at the edge, I think we should re-envision the telecom network becoming the IT network and say that the telecom network is becoming the cloud. 5 years ago, we had a lot of strategy work, and my teams at various different locations where I worked put a lot of time into thinking about the telecom network as the direct on-ramp to the cloud. And my thinking and our team's thinking has really changed now to no longer think about the telecom network as the on-ramp to the cloud, but to think about the telecom network as the cloud.
So you're listening to 5G Talent Talk with Kevin Shatzkamer, Vice President of Dell Technologies, and we're talking about how 5G is transforming the workforce. So, Kevin, how should leaders prepare for this shift in the workforce?
I think that's a great question. I think it's a cultural shift first and foremost. And while I think leaders continue to embrace innovation in lots of different ways across the industry, and there's a lot of really good data points of that innovation being embraced in just about every geography, I think that when we really think about how leaders are going to step forward in this new world and not just prepare themselves, but prepare their organizations, it's a lot more around empowerment, right? So how do we empower teams in ways to make decisions that today are very lengthy, and how do we streamline the time to decision? And how do we recognize that the decisions that are getting made need to be made in almost micro decisions, rather than taking one large decision and taking very big steps forward at a time? How do we recognize that lots of little decisions made by empowered teams all come together to feed into the long-term path of the broader decisions that the companies are making? I think in parallel to that, certainly if we look at the workforce and the next set of workers, I think they're incented differently. Culturally, they're interested in exploring opportunities that are mind-expanding and expanding to their own skills, more so than they are, I think, driven by the economics of the roles in which they sit. I think they're driven towards decentralization from a team perspective, and working from home more and embracing telecommuting in ways that are different from the way we've done to date. I think that the tools of using email as a primary means of communication is shifting towards more chat-based mechanisms, things like Slack and Skype for business and various other tools, even text messaging as a tool for business. So I think that what we have to recognize is that the decentralization of information amongst teams means that aggregating decision processes is a lot more complex.
We're speaking today with Kevin Shatzkamer, the Vice President and General Manager of Service Provider Solutions at Dell Technologies. So what are you doing with your own team at Dell to prepare for this new digital workforce?
there's lots of things going on that we work on. First and foremost, we do a very consistent bi-yearly review of the skills that we believe we need for the 1 year, 2 year, 5 year future, and ensure that we're upskilling the teams, investing in learning and development for the resources that we currently have, and specifically targeting talent and capabilities that we don't have within our organization to be able to ensure that we are well prepared for this future digital transformation. And then we take that knowledge in terms of what we think those core skill sets are, and we share it back out with our customers to help them understand how we are evolving ourselves and how we think the industry needs to evolve as well. Secondarily, we do a consistent and constant reevaluation of the tools we use and whether the tools we are using are the right ones for us to be able to make decisions quickly. So that could be internal wikis, that could be various DevOps and agile tools from an engineering perspective, that can be some of the communications tools that I mentioned earlier around Slack and whatnot, and ensuring that we have a combination of documented decision logic and decision process while not forcing everything to come together into a unified decision tree that slows our ability to react to market conditions. And then thirdly, we are in a constant state of organizational change and realignment. Right, so what worked 2 years ago, 3 years ago for our organization when we were 90% biased towards strategy and 10% biased towards operations works well to keep the team aligned to developing a single strategy and not leading to branches off from that strategy. But now as we've firmed up that strategy and we've shifted more towards this 50-50 model, it's what's the right organizational structure to accelerate and scale our speed to execution.
So
I would say nothing's constant except change.
You are so right about that, especially in telecom and technology. Where can our listeners find out more about this telco evolution?
Yeah, so we've been very vocal in terms of our views of how the landscape continues to change, how the workforce continues to change, how the business continues to evolve, and really looking at it across the 4 transformations that Dell Technologies continues to embrace: the IT transformation, the digital transformation, the workforce transformation, and the security transformation. And I've been very vocal on this as well through Dell EMC's external blog series. So if you were to go to Direct to Dell, that's the number 2, Direct to Dell EMC, and search for me, you'll find quite a number of blogs over the course of the last 2 years sharing our views on how the organization begins to transform. And then obviously, aside from that, we're very vocal through press and media and various different outlets and events and whatnot at sharing our views as to how this industry will evolve. Because we're of the firm belief that our technology speaks for itself. We build the best technology, and from the industry, we have the broadest set of capabilities of any company that is focused on the digital transformation and the largest R&D budget. But more so than that, our technology, while it will continue to sell and will be successful from a pure technology perspective, we really want to help the industry and pull the industry forward and share our learnings, our capabilities, and collaborate to build these new ecosystems, to build these new networks, and to embrace these new technologies at scale. And to do so, it requires more of a partnership-based model than just continuing to build technology.
Well, I want to thank you, Kevin. Fascinating discussion today about this new 5G workforce. And thank you for listening to this episode of 5G Talent Talk. I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at carriecharles.com. And please join me next week for another exciting episode of 5G Talent Talk. Till next time.
You've been listening to 5G Talent Talk with Carrie Charles, CEO of Broadstaff Talent Solutions. Brought to you by RCR Wireless News and Telecom Careers. Connect with Carrie at carriecharles.com.